Good afternoon, fun seekers. Welcome to the SOE Community Webcast. Today we have people from the EQ and EQ2 teams. Now, some of these people you might know. Some of these people you might not know. We'll start with introductions on the far end there. That is clearly Dave, also known as Tenacious D, but let's do full introductions.
Dave Georgeson, Smoke Jumper, executive producer for the EQ franchise.
I'm Doug Cronkite, Elidroth, the alternate advancement guy on EverQuest.
I'm Julie Burness. I'm on EverQuest. I'm a game designer.
Kyle Valee, Camder on EQ2. I'm a content designer.
Yes. And of course, I'm Linda Carlson, also known as Brass the Dwarf. Be seeing you at Fanfare next month. So we want to talk a little bit about what EQ and EQ2 are doing. Let's start with EQ here. We have just announced that you're putting out something called Hardcore Heritage, and this is not a heavy metal Amish band, right?
No, it is not.
All right, so what's it all about?
Well, EverQuest has always been heralded as, the grandfather, but it's also had the reputation for being the challenging MMO. There's many MMOs that have come out later that have been easier or whatever, and EQ's always had that badge of honor as being a difficult game. And this is really to celebrate with our players who've come along this journey with us, that badge, that honor, that reputation, notoriety.
So does this make the hardcore harder core?
No, it's just really a celebration of the fact that EQ is still a very challenging game. It's referred to as a hard game.
So the zone you've announced so far that's involved in this is Crushbone.
Yes.
Why did you pick that particular zone?
Because that's a zone I spent a lot of time in when I was a brand new player.
Yeah, no kidding.
And the first, dare I say the word, badass that I ran into was Ambassador Devin. And so
yeah.
that was a very nostalgic time for me, and it's a zone that is probably long been forgotten as players, dash through the lower levels, and I figured, hey, this is a great opportunity to bring that back, bring some of the nostalgia back, and really just bring a fun experience back into the forefront of players' minds.
So this amounts to a zone revamp, right?
Correct.
So what exactly have you changed?
Well, obviously the levels. The levels are now more for contemporary players. The difficulty level is relatively close to, I would say, tier 2 of House of Thule content. So it's up there, but it's not bleeding edge, but it's up there requiring level 90 players of some capability.
So is this an emerging trend for EQ now that you're going to follow?
I don't know that there's a lot of zones that we would love to do things like that too, as time permits. But I don't know. I wouldn't say that it's something that we're gonna smash those out every couple of months. But that would really be Dave's purview.
The answer is probably not.
That's definitely his level of world. But really, the experience in
really
Crushbone was to bring back some of the nostalgia, add some new flavor. A lot of your familiar faces are there. Well, all the familiar faces are there, and there are some new faces added. I tried to stick with the old-time feel of the zone. So the rare NPCs and such aren't going to have some crazy mechanics necessarily, because the old guys didn't. They were just, you ran in, you saw, oh, there's Ambassador Devin, and then he just beat you into the dirt.
Oh yes.
So
repeatedly.
So I really wanted it to be.
Usually while you were sitting on the stairs camping.
Yeah. So I wanted it to be a little more old-timey feel EQ as opposed to the jumping through hoops and duck and cover kind of gameplay.
Right, and we know that you guys are releasing 2 zones, and players have been spending a lot of time speculating what the second zone is. Julie, would you like to talk a little bit about what it is?
Sure. From the posts on the forums, some people have guessed it, but the second zone we're going to be doing is, in fact, Permafrost.
Nice. And why did you choose that one?
I personally didn't choose it, but if I had to choose a zone, it probably would have been up there. It's a big zone. There's a ton of rares. One of my first big kills in EverQuest is there, Lady Vox.
Is that one of your favorites to deal with then? Did you get to fully revamp her?
I did revamp her, yeah, and actually there's an interesting story to how she was revamped. A couple of years ago at Fanfare, there was a raid panel where players got to give their input on raid design, and we kind of took that. Actually, Adam my boss, the lead designer on EverQuest, he actually took camera phone photos of all the feedback, and I used those photos to design the new Lady Box Raid.
Wow, that's very cool. So
Yeah.
you took direct feedback right
Oh,
from
yeah.
Fanfare.
Definitely, definitely.
Yet another reason to come to Fanfare next month. So, talk a little bit about, if you can, about the raid that's part of the Zone revamp.
Well, at first, I had actually designed the raid very similar to the original Lady Box raid in that it was a contested raid. So guilds all over the server would have to fight for their chance to beat Lady Box. But we read some feedback based on an earlier raid this year, and we thought that maybe it'd be a better idea to instance the Lady Box raid. So we did that. So everyone should have a chance at Lady Box, whether they get the loot they want. You know, that's up to chance, I guess. But we did try to keep a little bit of the contested part in there. There's a special way you have to get access to Lady Box's lair. I'm not going to give it all away, but it does keep a little bit of that contested feel.
Okay, that's actually quite nice. So what changes did you make to the original design of the Zone itself?
Well, I noticed permafrost from playing it. A lot of the rares are kind of clumped up into one particular space in the zone, and it's such a vast zone that I felt it really needed to be able to support high traffic, which is definitely going to happen when this goes live. So I took the rares, added a few more, kind of spaced them out. So hopefully there's plenty of camps for everyone.
No, very cool. So let's switch over to EverQuest II now. With Game Update 60, first of all, how did it launch?
Couple of bumps, mostly good. And the bumps are getting worked out, like they'll be done by the end of the week here.
Wow, terrific. Okay, that's pretty fast then. And now, GU60, did you have it live on test for any period of time?
Yeah, really long time if you count the outage. But
I don't think that counts somehow.
it's about 3 weeks.
Ah,
It was
okay.
up there for about 3 weeks.
And during that 3-week period, did anybody manage to defeat the 3 Zeks?
No.
Awesome.
But that's usually true. People don't
Well-
play raids as hard during test as they do in reality.
Well, that's very true. It's harder to
Yeah.
get together a seasoned raid force that's used to working together.
Yeah.
So now that it's gone live, have any of the 3 Zeks been defeated?
No.
Sullen, Valen, Talon.
No.
See, one of the things that you guys might know, but I do from long experience in harassing Candor at fanfares for the last decade or so, he puts together really challenging content, which is, yeah. So,
Yeah.
of those 3 Zeks, which is the hardest?
That would be Valenzek. Valenzek is the final encounter for the Drunder raids.
And what can you tell us about the other 2? Who do you, well, let's put it this way, who do you expect to be taken down first?
We did a true progression, so people will go into the Spire of Rage first, which is Sullen's Tower.
Ah,
And then the progression is one guild for each server will unlock the next tower for the entire server. So the first guild that defeats Sullen's in the challenge mode will unlock the next tower for the entire server, and so on.
and have they been trying to defeat the first boss?
Yeah, we had, like Dave was talking about, we had a couple bumps. Boy, do we have bumps. And so people kind of got raffle stomped in the beginning.
Raffle stomped!
Yeah, one of the
Yeah.
bumps was a little too challenging at the beginning.
Ah,
So we're easing back on that.
Yeah, and there was some stacking issues and a couple other things that kind of caused some problems, but
but I assume...
hopefully very soon people will be progressing through the content.
So they haven't actually managed to make it all the way to even the first boss on live yet.
No,
Are they getting close?
in fact, most guilds have not made it past the first boss on live.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
it was because some things got set a little on the difficult side. We're fixing
Those
that.
bumps.
We're fixing it.
Yeah, and you know what that means. That means in a month's time, man, that was way too easy.
Welcome to hardcore.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you know if it's getting fixed tomorrow or Tuesday?
I believe a lot of the many of the balance issues are being fixed tomorrow morning, and I know it's going to be an ongoing thing.
And in case you're watching this later, it's Friday what is today?
Today is Thursday, June 2nd.
Second. So
I
the
know I
third,
have trouble
the
remembering
third.
which day of the week it is too. It's,
Oh, this isn't live?
yes. Oh, it's live.
You know,
It's
he'll watch
very
it
live,
later,
so we
too.
can't take any of it
Yeah.
back.
It'll be archived so people can watch it over and
Yes,
over again.
it'll be on YouTube. Yes,
Yeah,
thousands
I
of
was
views.
joking.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, so
Yeah.
it was a little on the difficult side. I would actually say a lot on the difficult side.
It was too hard.
Too hard,
Yeah.
way too hard, too much damage. There was some stacking issues. Roger has fixed a lot of the stuff with the first raids, so that's coming down significantly.
So do you
And
do?
this is fairly typical.
Right.
Because what happens is like we said, people don't play as hard on test,
Correct.
and they don't provide the feedback that it's particular. Well, when they say it's too hard on test, it's hard to say that really is the truth because they're kind of sleepwalking through it. They're not pushing as hard as they want to. It's not a real character to them, so on and so forth. So they play differently on test than they do on live. And then when we hit live, it's our best guess as to what is too hard. But because it's a 24-person team effort, it's difficult to assess that with different challenges that we lay out for each raid when there's only a handful of us testing it inside on the team. Or even with QA testing it, it's still not the same thing as reality.
And further to your point, we know that this is a regular thing for any of our games, really. For instance, with House of Thule, the feedback that we got for House of Thule raids, initially it was, man, these raids are way too easy. But that was for the super high-end, cutting-edge guilds.
Right.
And then soon after, the rest of the guilds started chiming in going, man, this stuff's way too hard, cut us a break.
Right.
So finding that balance is always
Yeah.
a matter of fine-tuning over a period
we didn't,
of time.
We didn't have that issue. We had the top guilds worldwide go in and get raffle stomped.
Curled up in a
You see-
corner, crying, rocking
Yeah.
themselves to sleep.
What you don't understand is that Kander here was secretly delighted by this. He just sat in his cube and just giggled. I mean, I'm sure.
I would actually like to go on record to say that I did not do the actual raids.
Oh, do you want to throw anyone under the bus, Kyle? No.
I already
Just
did.
kidding. Oh.
I mean, actually, it's not even oftentimes it's not even a conscious decision to
Right.
play less aggressively. It's just
Right.
like Dave was saying, you don't have that investment in this test character that you do in your normal play character, and people just naturally play more aggressively, more fine-tuned
Yeah.
on their live servers. It's an unfortunate but reality. I mean, it's what
Yeah,
it is.
definitely.
We are working on plans to fix this.
Yeah.
Really?
But we're not ready to announce them yet. But
Yeah.
they roll around let's put it this way, a veteran rewards program that we're talking about rolling out later this year. We might be able to, well, without getting into details, the rewards that you can get from that program, we want to incentivize people, like when they play on test and they help us with stuff, we give them points towards reclaiming stuff in that system.
Nice. Well,
That's
in
the
that
current
way, you
airport.
might be able to incentivize regular raid groups that are used to playing together
That's what we're
to
hoping.
take. Oh,
And then
That would be
the
really
rewards
great.
that you get on test could then be applied to your real characters, or on the other
Right, on
worlds.
live servers.
So that at that point, if you don't play on test full time, you'd still be getting something that was worth your time.
Something to show.
so for both games, when you've got encounters that are too difficult or too easy, that sort of thing, you obviously get a tremendous amount of player feedback. How heavily does that figure into your decision-making process?
I did a lot of tuning. I did a lot of tuning for Underfoot, which was EverQuest, when we went really hard on stuff. So we got a lot of feedback from players saying, "We want hard stuff," and we went, "Okay, here's hard stuff," and they went, "Oh wow, that's really hard." So I did a lot of tuning on that stuff, and realistically, you have to take player input versus. It's a balance. You take player input, you take what you see in the game itself, you take a lot of different feedback and kind of push it all together into this amalgam to figure out really where you need to go. And then you take it a small chunk at a time, because if you do, okay, this is way too hard, I'm going to make this easier, then you swing to the other end of the spectrum, and then if people just destroy it, and so you have to bring it back up, and
It's a very fine line, isn't it, really?
yeah,
Yeah,
it
and that's
really
another
is.
thing too, is it's always better to err on the side of more difficult as
Yes.
opposed to, because our players are much more friendly to making things easier for them to enjoy as opposed to
Making
ever
it
going back
harder.
and
Yeah,
making
and
it
if you make something
more difficult, which
if
we
you make
really don't
something
do.
easier, you're helping them. If you make something harder, it's punitive.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
In feeling, it may not be. It may be putting it where it belongs, but
So you have
to
to
players, it
yeah,
feels
so you have to
like
find
punishment.
something between handout and punishment, and
Definitely.
in between is challenge.
Yeah.
Hey,
and
granted,
achievement.
the target is doing it right. But if you're going to err on one side, you want to err on
Yes.
more difficult.
Right.
This was especially true with the Crushbone raid, because it's not a big area that I had to work with, and
Right.
so in looking at the area I was working with, I thought, okay, there's no way I'm going to shove 54 people into this room.
Right.
So Crushbone's raid is for 3 groups, It's a
Ah.
small scale raid. And before anybody panics, this is
You
not
know your audience, yes.
this is not a shift towards reducing raid size. This is the
But
applicable
you said
easy. But this is just an applicable area with what we had to work with, and it's something I like the idea of, but it's not anything we're trying to shove down players' throats.
Gotcha. So let's talk a little bit more about GU60. Another one of the things that came out with this update is a new battleground match style called Vanquish. Dave, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's a departure from our regular types of games in that, well, they're all team versus team. Well, most of them are, but this one isn't just capture the flag where you grab something and run with it. What's happening is it's Giants versus Coldane on a map. They're driving out. They're basically the objective is to bash in the other guy's gate and invade his citadel. But there's towers along the way, and if you take out the towers, then it prevents the NPCs that are attacking each other's citadels from respawning. So there's reasons to go out and take over those towers. But the ultimate objective is to take over the other gate. So you have to decide, how much do I want to protect the NPCs? How much do I want to protect the tower that keeps my NPCs generating? And how much do I need to protect my gate versus attacking their gate? So there's lots of decisions to be made on a regular basis. It really rewards good team play. And it's pretty frenetic. You can just jump into like just a pub game, and there's so much going on that no matter where you go, you are helping.
Wow, that's much more complicated than your standard battleground match.
Sure.
then.
Well, it's the fourth game type we're adding to PvP, so we figure by this time they kind of know what they're doing. We can throw something with some meat at them, and they should enjoy it. And I like it. I think it's a good game.
I like the jump into pub reference, but I think you meant something different from what I was thinking.
I'm all for jumping in the pub.
Pub game. Public.
Yeah. So, Kyle, what sorts of things did you really enjoy working on in this game update? What were some of the highlights for you?
We were trying to bring Drunder to life as far as we wanted to balance it between making it EQ2s, but also adding the key elements of nostalgia and the ooh and ah, but not strangling you with nostalgia. So it was fun because we got to bring some new stuff in and some new racial types in and some new storylines. So it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of we especially have the Talonites and the Valonites and the Caragdal, which have been introduced, which are a race that we kind of brought in Sentinel's Fate, and people went, what the heck are these? And now we're explaining that story, and there's going to be lore and stuff given to them. So there's a lot of questions being answered as far as the Destiny of Velius and the Swords of Destiny line going on.
So it's all part of the overall story arc then?
Yes.
And it sets up a major climactic point for GU60.
Yeah, I mean, we're just starting to get not even to the halfway point of the storyline, but
So GU61, will that be out before the next expansion?
Yeah.
Wow,
That'll be out in
terrific.
August.
So how does this affect your planning for the expansions when you do these sorts of updates? I mean, are the expansions always sort of running in the background as you're working on these additions to the gameplay?
absolutely.
And do you have any trouble scheduling that in either game?
I don't know what you're
Well,
talking about.
there's usually layers of stuff. There's short-term projects which we're doing on a constant basis, and then there's medium ones, and then there's long-term projects like expansion packs. And you're constantly, like, while you're working on all the little stuff, and everything's in parallel all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like looking at a jigsaw puzzle with every piece is moving on a constant basis. And you're basically optimizing what the shape of your puzzle is going to end up being as the pieces change while you're putting it together. And then, yeah, so it's challenging, but on the other hand, it's the best game I've ever played.
Yeah, it is a lot of fun.
Speed.
Yes. So, just wondering if any of you guys want to talk to the devs a little bit more, sit in on their panels, ask them questions directly, make sure that you sign up for Fanfare. Just go to SOEfanfare.com and you can register. And we don't keep any of our devs behind a velvet rope as much as they might sometimes wish it. You will find them mingling in with everybody that's at Fanfare. We're all pretty much one big happy family, and the beer helps.
Yeah, buy a drink, we answer a question.
Okay!
Any question?
Wow!
Kyle will
see
answer
it
the
now.
any questions.
At Fanfare, we'll be looking for Julie behind a pile of drinks.
Yeah.
I can see it now.
The
Yeah.
answers get better and better as the night goes on.
You bet we can do that!
Take it up with schedule.
Yeah, we always have a lot of very interesting announcements at Fanfare, and of course, as Julie mentioned, sometimes the discussions that start at Fanfare actually
Yeah.
wind up making their way into games. Now, we're almost out of time here. Joel, are there any questions from the floor that people are asking?
No.
You
Success!
muted them all!
Yes.
I like to think we've answered all their
Yeah.
questions.
Maybe they're saving them for fanfare. But we
Yeah.
hope.
No, right now they're on the forums going, Permafrost? I can't believe you revat Permafrost instead of insert name
Yeah,
of my
yeah.
favorite zone here.
There is one, and you plan to bring back 72-man raids.
Well, 72-man
Not
raids.
currently.
That's a lot of men.
That
Yeah.
72, you
Well,
know,
huge.
remember, in the beginning of EQ, there
Zergs.
wasn't any limit.
Any
The
raids.
You're
limit
right.
was
I know,
literally
I
how
know.
many people can you shove in
Rove
the
and
zone.
dive and
And
come back, die
that-
again.
is a
So,
problem.
so no, I
Throwing
mean,
60 people at
Yeah.
Lord Nagafin, exploding. One guy's left to loot the
Yeah.
chest.
Right.
Everyone else is being rezzed.
a lot of our players know that I'm in favor of I'm in favor of the smaller raid sizes for a number of
Yeah.
reasons. But going bigger, no. Going smaller, no plans either. It's just
You know,
go ahead.
if you don't mind,
No, no.
I did PlanetSide, and when we had 100-person battles, what it basically boiled down to is when there's so many warm bodies in a certain area, you're not making an impact.
Right.
Yeah.
So once you get a battle where there's too many people involved, you don't feel particularly
You don't feel
heroic
important.
anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
More
you're just
important,
looking
right.
at lag on the screen and
Yeah. So it's an interesting tactical challenge, and I can see why leaders would be interested in it. But from a individual player perspective, it's not that entertaining.
Right, and that's really the beauty, in my opinion, of the smaller raid sizes is now your contribution means that much more. You're not just number 6 out of 9 of this particular class. It's like your role is important and your job is important, and there's some selfish reasons too. It makes it much easier for us to balance raids when there's smaller numbers that we're dealing with. When we're not having to dealing with, when I have 9 of this class and 3 of this class and 2 of this class, the stacking on some of their abilities makes, oh wow, we didn't plan for this one that just goes completely ape. It's much easier to predict how things are going to go when they're smaller raids. But
Yeah.
again,
Yeah.
we're not
Yeah.
we're not deviating from 54-man raids.
Don't get me wrong. Big raids, big groups of
Currently.
players is a
Thanks,
spectacle
Adam.
that's just second to none. I mean, the spectacle is amazing,
Right.
but it gets old after a while.
yes. Yeah, I would have to agree. I've played almost every MMO out there, and yeah,
Same
the
here.
big ones.
You
Yeah.
probably played Daok with the realm versus realm
You
stuff.
betcha.
When you got
A
like
lot.
too many people in an area, it was just crazy.
Other games as well. Warhammer Online. I mean, I know that we had a lot of issues with the lag in the high-end raids where you just had too many bodies, and you end up sort of going, "Why am I here? I'm not
Right.
You're not
really
contributing.
contributing."
At the same time, though, the number of players in an EQ raid, EQ was the first game that I can recall of any of the games that I've ever played in way too many years, where the large-scale raid aspect really came to flourish. I mean, EQ is still where you see the big numbers, and in a lot of ways, the big numbers are really impressive because nobody else is doing it. Everybody else is doing, these shoebox-sized raids, and we still do big stuff.
Yeah, you're right. A lot of, for instance, in EQ2 we have ×2 raids, which is just 2 groups, and ×4 raids, which is obviously 4 groups. And so clearly what we have to have at Fanfare is a debate between the 2 teams on who has the better raids. I think that would be awesome. Anyway, I don't think that's going to happen, but
We're
it would be fun to
short.
think about.
I don't know that
Oh.
it's better necessarily.
They're just different
Yeah,
play
they're just
styles.
They
different.
fit
Yeah,
into the,
they're
they fit
just
into the
different.
game networks, in the game structures differently.
What always surprised me about the 2 games, having played both, is the fact that they're very similar in so many respects and so very different in other gameplay respects. So they're, they just happen to carry the
I
same
mean,
name
EQ's
and the
better,
same
of course,
character.
but
Join us at the pub after the Fanfare shows and we'll debate this more.
I'll tell you how much better EQ is.
Thanks, Doug. Thanks all for tuning in, and we look forward to seeing you on next week's webcast.